Hey, 918ers, this is IT Geek. Welcome everybody in tonight. Let's see who we got in tonight. Let's see here. We got Jay, the Bluesman and Wonder Midget. We got Geek Boy. Geek Boy, say hello.
Hello there.
Very good. Let's see, something's going on here. This is different from what we had earlier. Let me fix this real quick. Well, you know what? This was working just fine just a second ago, and of course this wouldn't be the same. So stand by. Let me fix this real quick of our picture.
Yeah. Are we having some technical difficulties there,
We
IT
are
Geek?
here, and it wouldn't be a Fanboys 918 episode if we didn't have some technical
Absolutely.
difficulties. So give me a chance to fix this real quick, and we'll be right back. Will you stay tuned?
It's kind of stuck on us. What?
And this was working just right just a second ago, and then all of a sudden this is all jacked up.
This will not be the episode we submit for Emmy nomination.
I can't believe this. This was working right before we went live with no problems.
What's it do? I mean, what are you seeing? Because it was looking good where I
Is it
was.
looking good
What
on
kind
the
of
side?
stress is you
Because right now, everyone. So like Jay and Laura, speak up for a second.
Hello, Tex. Can you hear us?
What was I seeing here? Because it looked like it was acting all weird just a second ago.
We look very stretched.
Yes, it looks like camera that like Laura's getting cut off.
Oh well, then I just moved to move over.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. On the camera, it's going to show us a little. No, it does. It's short. Yeah.
Well, isn't that special?
That just means this is going to be a good
I
one.
think we're still live.
Damn right.
We are still
still
I'll
live.
tell you that right now.
well,
We're still alive, and I am trying to
Yay!
fix this. And like I said, I don't know why all of a sudden this just went all jacked up and wonky on me.
It's because we went live. We're haunted.
That's exactly what it was, because I was checking this before we went live, and all of a sudden this is now the way it is. So like, let's see here. So.
Hey Jay, Laura, you guys need to move your camera just a little bit toward Laura, just a little bit.
I see what you're talking about. Yeah,
I got
Just a hair.
like that. How's
There
that?
we go. Perfect. Yeah, and we can still see mahogany, so that's good.
Good,
All
good.
right,
And you still see
let's
Bert?
do a quick check on everything.
We're gonna start this thing over. What are we gonna do?
I think we just started up proper here. So let's see here. We got Jay and Laura centered there. Looks good.
Hey,
John, go ahead and say something for us.
Hey there, IT Geek. Can you hear me? We got sound. We got
Sound is great.
we got
what
picture?
about our Madam Brunch and Bullets? What's she look like? Give us a holla. All right, so she is there as well. So I say we've got pictures. Heck, I don't even know why I'm coming up like, but let's just press on and get on with this.
That's what I can say. Through the miracle of social distancing, we're coming at everybody from our various secure, sterilized, sanitized, and socially distant locations across the 918. And we are going to press on through this. And as the Blues Man said, it's not a great episode if we don't have some technical glitches. Am I right, Blues Man?
That is absolutely correct.
By the way, who is that over your right shoulder there?
My right shoulder.
Yes,
Well, this beauty is mahogany.
I see
One of
that.
my favorites. I have many favorites.
yeah.
This is my number one favorite.
Good answer.
I don't think he's
Good
pointing
answer.
at Bert right there. I think he's actually pointing to the one.
No, guys. Favorite actor, probably yes. Favorite
You follow
person,
that finger, that could have been questionable there for a second.
That's okay.
Well, there's a 15-second delay. Let me see. Oh, it is questionable. I just looked.
Yeah. No, I'm watching it and I see it. I see it.
Okay. Well, for
So
those
if you
that
see
are
a stretch, it's because we're broadcasting from the transwarp conduit.
that's
Yes. Yep.
in a fleet of cloaked space orchids hovering over the Antarctic Circle.
Uphill
Being
both
said,
ways.
I think that kind of leads us into what are we going to be talking about tonight there, Mr. Geek Boy?
We are going to be giving our spoiler-filled, and I cannot stress that enough, spoiler-filled thoughts for the two people that are still with us after our expert introduction. Our spoiler-filled thoughts on Season 1 of Star Trek Picard. But before we do that, I want to thank everyone who's tuned in tonight, all of our 488 followers who choose to engage with us in one way or another, whether it's through sharing things, commenting on articles, or even throwing out some things that spark discussions, such as videos like this. If you like what we're doing, not the earlier stuff we did tonight, but the stuff we're doing right now, if you like what if you like what you're doing, what we're doing, please leave a like and share the content. And if you're so inclined, if you really want to help us out, jump over to our YouTube page and like and subscribe to it as well. The Facebook page is still the primary way that we engage with everyone, but we're in the process of building that channel up. So if you really want to support our efforts in that way, we would greatly appreciate it. Now that I've gotten all that out of the way, I would like to let us know that right now we're going to share our thoughts on Star Trek Picard. And I say thoughts because I don't really know if this is going to be an actual review. This is not going to be like an episode by episode review so much. It is kind of like an amalgamation of our feelings and our thoughts of how well we thought the series did in its freshman season and how well it kind of met our expectations or did not. Because we've said this before on these things, whether it's Star Wars or Star Trek or Doctor Who or even the Marvel films at this point, expectations play a huge part in something like this, and especially one that leans so heavily into our own personal nostalgia. So I think I'm just going to start by going kind of around the wheel and asking everybody to give maybe a little 30 to 60 second blurb of how successful they thought the series was. I'm going to start with the Blues Man and the Wonder Midget. Guys, 30, 60 seconds. Give me your how did the series succeed for you?
Ladies first.
Well, I do have to say they're finally doing the Star Trek right. I do have issue with a couple of things, Geek Boy, and I'll discuss that later. But I think they finally did it right, and Seth MacFarlane has his work cut out for him as far as the Orville, and they finally are doing Trek.
I think this is the first Star Trek episodes that we have gotten that were very genuine, very well thought out. Cinematography was fantastic. The plot was good, solid. Story arc is building. For me, absolute thumbs up on a good track.
Okay.
Good track.
Good track. No, I saw what you did there. So before we go to the next person, 1 to 5 stars, guys, what would you give it?
I give it 4.
Okay. Blues Man?
I agree with the 4.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Now I'm going to switch over to Madam Brunch and Bullets, who has been so patiently waiting, and because I know she's always got something to say. 30 to 60 seconds, Madam. How did Picard do for you?
I really enjoyed Picard. I very much liked it compared to some of the newer Trek that has come out on CBS All Access. I finished the series, so there's that. But
That's high praise coming from a Vulcan.
right. So, but I really enjoyed it. I think there was a few plot holes that they could have definitely fixed before the end of the series, but for sure it can maybe it will be addressed in season 2, and they just were using that to kind of lay groundwork for the next season. But I think there was a few things they could have done better, but overall I really enjoyed it.
Okay. 1 to 5 stars?
Probably about a 3.5 to 4.
Okay. All right. Moving right along down the line is the IT Geek. Mr. IT Geek, 30 to 60 seconds. How did Star Trek Picard's freshman season play to you?
I would say out of the whole run, I think we've got a good 3 to 4 episodes of Star Trek, but I think we got a pretty good story of Picard, and we'll talk more about that, of where I think it kind of deviated between that path. A lot of great episodes, a lot of great callbacks to other characters that we hold near and dear to our heart with Next Generation. But all in all, I enjoyed the series. To me, it was a 3.5 stars, but I look forward to season 2 as well.
Okay. Before I head on, I believe we may have lost the Wonder Midget and the Blues Man. Do you see them on the screen?
No, they're not there.
Okay.
Oh, what happened? Okay.
Can
well,
we?
hopefully they will join back in, and if not, we
Do
will see what
do you
we
need
can do.
do you need to send them a new invite to do that?
I may have to, so let me
Okay.
let me do that real quick.
Okay. Sorry, folks. We're all social distancing, and everybody on the planet is using the interwebs right now.
Because that's all there is to do.
You are absolutely correct. You are absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Oh.
Did it start?
Please do not share the Wonder Midget's personal email. Those of you that are watching. All 4 of our fans will be sending us stuff.
I think we've shared these email addresses before. So
I think you're correct. Yes.
I think we're fine.
Yeah. So
We'll see what happens.
Hopefully
let's see here.
hopefully they can get back on. We got anybody in the chat? 3 comments.
We've had
Probably.
Dwayne join us. We've had Austin Thomas is watching. Thanks, Austin and Dwayne, joining in. Let's
They're
see
probably
here.
like-
Stephanie Hines, John Hines
Well.
is watching. Hey, welcome, John. In case you
Hello.
didn't see us.
Hello there.
So,
We don't even care that we're not using handles. I mean, there's the internet's moving so slow, nobody can hear what we're doing anyway.
exactly. So
So, have they joined back in yet?
I do not see them yet and everything, and
Okay.
they have not actually texted us or anything. So stand by.
They may not know that they're off.
Well, while we're waiting, I
Yes.
know that my significant other said that the ending was too perfect.
Oh, really?
He thought it
That's-
was too nicely wound into a little bow, and it was too perfect.
Okay. Like it was almost like, oh my God, we got all these things. We got to do something. We got to get all this wrapped up real nice.
Right. and that's kind of how he felt like it was, especially
Okay.
the Golem and doing what they did, and was, I don't know.
Well, I will get to my comments on how I thought the ending was, how the ending went, but that's obviously later in the discussion, assuming we can get this thing going. This is supposed to be prime Netflix hours for everyone because we didn't have any of this trouble when we were testing earlier.
I know that's what I was saying. This is crazy, and that the fact that none of this happened. Everything looked great on the images and our display. I was really proud of it, and here you go.
There you go.
There you go.
So. So, I mean, I hate to.
Keep talking. We'll see.
Like I say, I hate to have dead air, but I don't want to. So,
I've got Star Trek card pulled up on the thing, so it covers up.
Okay, so
I can try to get Wonder Midget.
The way I feel about it is, with everyone being said, I have mixed feelings about the show. I found it to be a far superior show than STD.
I'm sorry. Did you mean to say it that way?
I did.
Okay. All right. So just FYI, that previous show is a sexually transmitted
There
disease.
they are. Hey, we're good. Welcome back. I want to welcome the Wonder Midget and the Blues Man back. Hey, it's the night for Gremlin, so it's going to be a damn good episode tonight. But since they're back, like I said, I have mixed feelings on the show. I found it to be far superior to Discovery. I mean, and as everyone in this group, as well as people that follow our programming know, it might sound like damning it with faint praise because I really do not. I mean, I hate watch Discovery. I mean, I watch it so I get my hate on. That's not what I do with this show.
Before you go work out, just so you have like the adrenaline pump on hate.
Oh yeah.
Let's do a quick sound check with Jay and Laura real quick if we could.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, we can
Perfect.
hear you. Cool. Great.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, we had to send you Hootie packing, pulled out the sage real quick, and you know.
Yeah. Cindy Brown just came in and said, "Just keep talking, John Hines. We all know you have all the opinions."
That's right.
So,
well, since you brought that up,
there you go.
Overall, there were a lot of things that really, really worked for me for this show. And how can I say this? The things that worked for me were very broad. So when I talk about my criticisms later, it's going to be like, damn, Geek Boy. But no, I mean, the things that worked for me really did work for me. But in the end, the things that didn't, and I say toward the end, like the last maybe 3 episodes, they kind of began to overpower the things that I liked. So as a result, I'm kind of waffling between 2.5 and 3 stars. I mean, I can't. I mean, my God, the show was entertaining. I can't give it anything below 2.5 stars, for God's sakes. Not like unlike the other Star Trek show, but again, I'm kind of treading the ground that Brunson Bullets has said. So, with that having been said, we'll get into a lot of what everybody said in more detail later. Let's talk about the show's namesake. A lot was being made in the press and about everything about this being a new chapter in Picard's life. And again, we're going to go in the same order we were in before. Blues Man, Wonder Midget. How did you guys feel about how basically where we find Picard? What he's been doing, his mindset. Did you guys like that, or did it not work for you? Let me know what you think about that.
I enjoyed it. I liked the Romulan expatriates that were there with him on the Vineyard. I like that we got to see where he, yes, it's odd that he went back to Earth and stuff. His heart's always been out in space and exploring. I like that we found out how old he was, 85. And we got to meet these other people like Rios and Rafi, who, since he left, well, actually, since we left Next Gen, and what's happened between then and when everybody from Voyager got back, there were decades between then and now. And we get to revisit all of that. So, of course, Picard would have had other relationships, other ships, and other people that would have been just as betrothed to him as the crew of the Enterprise was. So I like how they're exploring these new characters, and we're getting to know them at the latter half of their relationship with Picard.
Okay, Blues Man.
I thought actually it was exactly what I anticipated. You
Oh.
figure after so many decades of full service, going on from Enterprise to something else more likely, and then we were introduced. I'm sorry, to Picard in his retirement. Well, I mean, he can't go out gallivanting around the galaxy. So what does he do? He goes to his vineyard. So to me, it was very fitting introduction to the Picard character. Exactly what I had imagined. And as the story shortly unfolds, I was very intrigued, and I really liked it. Like I said, it was hitting on all 8 cylinders for me in the very beginning. Grabbed my attention. I wanted to watch the next one.
I do have to say one thing, though. Technically, he was gallivanting around, wasn't he? Weren't they acting? And he put on the eye patch when they went to the.
No, I mean, but
Oh yeah.
So there's a little
Before that,
gallivant.
We need to
Before
talk about
that,
that scene a
my point was-
little later.
Oh, we will.
Because I don't think that's that was.
I'm quite ready.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, before I move on to
we
Madam
wanted
Brunch.
we wanted to welcome Eli. He's watching.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eli, for
What's
joining
up,
us.
Eli?
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to do.
Okay.
Eli, the Latin lover.
That's right.
Right
So,
on, Roper.
Madam Brunch, where we find Picard at this stage of his life, were you happy with that, or were you expecting something different?
Well, I mean, he's 85 years old. Where else do you want him to be? But my thing is,
Dead on the captain's chair of his ship.
the dog.
Anyway, that's
I want more of the dog. Sorry. No, I liked that it sent him to his vineyard, because that's a lot of his, especially in Next Gen, when he would go back, or when it would have a Picard episode, it always had him reminiscing or dreaming of being on his vineyard.
Exactly.
True.
And so he retires, fully retires. He's kind of forced into it. It was a decision he had to make, but it was a decision he didn't want to make. So he retreated to the place he was comfortable. And so that the vineyard was where he went was appropriate.
Well,
But-
because at the time, you know, whenever he would go back, like you said, he never really had the opportunity to actually have that time to dedicate to having that type of a life, because
Right.
gallivanting across the galaxy was a full-time job.
Right, exactly. So it's fitting that he would go back to his vineyard, and that's where he would go. And then, but at the same time, it's fitting that he would be there, and he's like freaking bored. So,
Well, I didn't find the fact he was bored to be surprising at all, but I'll get to that in a minute. IT Geek.
So, kind of in what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, in rebuke to what Madam said, the fact that we find Picard on his vineyard, to me, was more kind of a defeatism to him. If we remember back from like Generations and some of the Star Trek Next Generation episodes, Picard's desire to be on the vineyard, even the conflict with his brother, was something that he didn't want. He, to me at least, my interaction with that was, or my interpretation with that was, is that this was not his life; it was his brother's life. And as we saw throughout the first season here, Picard, when he literally threatened, like, either do this or you have my resignation, and they're like, fine, we accept your resignation, then Picard is like, okay, I'm defeated. The one place that I thought I found my way in life, that I thought I brought value to, is literally gone now. So what do I do? And the only thing he can do is retreat to his vineyard and live out a dull, boring life. And if you remember, Picard was even an archaeologist by sheer dream, but by sheer desire.
His hobby.
He doesn't even, his hobby, and he doesn't even explore that venue. So when I see him on the vineyard, I'm like, man, this is a defeated Picard, someone that thought he had such a level of value to Starfleet, And then, as we saw, like I said, we saw through the episodes, is that he was pretty much put out to pasture because they didn't see that the same way, or at least at that point in his career. So to find him on the vineyard was literally his signal of, I give up. I don't know what my life is anymore now that I'm not in charge of a ship. I'm not part of Starfleet. I'm not out in space. So that was my take of Picard on the vineyard, and this short portion of the story of Picard.
I could see that. Yeah. I mean, everybody at some point goes back to their roots when they've lost themselves, but he knew he needed to get back out there and he needed to make a difference. But You're right. We did find out how his, I guess, almost a fall from grace.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term.
Remember, even at the end of Generations, the vineyard was actually burned down in a horrific fire and killed his brother and his nephew. So,
That's right.
I mean, the fact that he's got to come back to this place of tragedy is kind of another symbol. It's like, what else am I going to do? So, I mean, there's so many elements that I guess that I interpreted that this is this is the first time we've seen a defeated Picard since when he got basically assimilated by the Borg.
Yeah, it was very disheartening to watch. But again, that's exactly what I anticipated.
Well, and I'm gonna chime in a story here that fits with everything we've been saying. I was kind of along the lines of the IT geek is, okay, so we have the very first scene with Picard where he meets not Soji, Dodge, her sister. Okay. And I'm thinking, why is he here? Apart from the fact that if you look at All Good Things, the last episode of the series, that's where he was. But my thought is, why is he here? I mean, if he's not in Starfleet, you could have had this same scene, kind of like the IT geek said, play out on an alien landscape somewhere where he's digging up an old civilization, But then, and I was expressing this to one of my customers, a good friend of mine named Daniel, who is into all this stuff. And Daniel loves Picard. He thinks it's a great show. And he is a longtime Star Trek fan. Okay, so this is not his first rodeo. He was a huge Next Generation fan. And he said, and then he kind of got into the whole defeated aspect, like what everyone's been talking about. He said, now think about this, Geek Boy. He said, Picard has always been arrogant. And I thought, what? He goes, think about it. He said, his arrogance has gotten him into trouble over and over again. It cost him his biological heart when he started that bar fight with those Nausicaans. He got run through with that sword. I thought, okay. He said, his arrogance with Q got the Enterprise thrown, all the way out to the Delta Quadrant and introduced them to the Borg and started that whole chain of events. His arrogance with Q caused him that. His arrogance, he listed several different times where his arrogance got him into a lot of trouble. And he goes and he said, so it cost him his heart. It almost cost him his ship several times. And in the end, it cost him his commission. And when he goes, he had nowhere else to go. And when he said that, it was like, it was like, oh my gosh. I mean, as much as I bristled at, I thought, you know what? It actually did make perfect sense at that point.
Well,
so
and that likens back to the whole scene in First Contact when, Picard's throwing that fit in his ready room trying to modify that phaser rifle. And she's like, you broke your little ships.
Mm-hmm.
Where was the turning point? Was that maybe the turning point?
I don't know that there was a turning point. I honestly think he still thought he I guess you could look at it as he basically bought into his own press at this point in his career and thought, I'm Admiral Picard. I'll go in there and I'll lay my thing down and they'll have to do this, and they didn't. So
and then he tried again, and that's when he hooked back up with Rafi, and
all because Starfleet says you are crazy. Go enjoy your pasture.
Yeah.
Go back to your glue factory.
Yeah. So and I think, one of the reasons I bristled, and the IT geek hinted at it earlier, and I think we're going to talk about that now because this seems like a good place to do it. One of the things that kind of hamstrung me when I first started watching the show was the title, Star Trek Picard. And, at the very beginning of I want to say the first 3 episodes maybe, it really was setting itself up to play like a sequel to Next Gen. We had, god dang, the opening shot of the series is the Enterprise D. I mean, again, You want to know something to work for me? That freaking worked for me. Seeing the Enterprise D come at me in full high def, with new special effects technology, that was fantastic. But over the course of the show, it became obvious that it wasn't. And so I'm going to start with the IT geek. I'm going to go backwards this time because he specifically said this. At what point did you realize we were in for a completely different animal, IT geek?
So I would say, when we started talking about Star Trek Picard and when it really became, all right. So I'm trying to get my thoughts clear here and everything, but when it really deferred from Star Trek Picard to literally Picard, it really was on, and it's that scene I just showed up, is that he's on the ship and he's about to take off into space, and he basically does the engage. And to me, that's when it really became more Picard than Star Trek Picard, if that makes sense to anyone.
Yeah.
Episodes, I believe 1, 2, and 3, and I believe this actually scene happens at the end of episode 3. I really felt I was still in Star Trek. There was a lot of going to Star Trek Command, Starfleet Command. There was a whole a lot of Earth scenes, the Mars scenes. I really felt Planet Utopia. On the shipyards, all of that was feeling very Star Trek to me. But after the end of episode 3 and he went engage and they took off, episode 4 is literally when it became more of Picard. The Star Trek really wasn't as prevalent to me as it was in episodes 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. Madam Brunch, do you have anything to offer on this?
Yes. So when I realized it wasn't Star Trek was probably actually when they were at Starfleet. Just because of the way they spoke to him.
Yep.
I think that has always been my biggest problem, the way they just spoke to him. They did not have any respect for him. Even the media at the very first episode when he's interviewing the Mars anniversary of the synth attack, they didn't speak to him like a retired officer. They didn't speak to him as somebody who had worked very hard to get the title he received, retired or not. And so I think that's where I struggled the most with it. And then we go to Free Cloud and
Oh wow! Okay, Free Cloud.
That was also a big one. I was like, that's not Star Trek at all because of what happened there. And I know we'll talk about that later, but
oh yes, we will.
That was also a big part of why it wasn't Star Trek Picard. It was just Picard.
Okay. Wonder Midget and the Blues Man. Do you have any comments on this? I think we've kind of talked about it already, but anything else you want to add?
I absolutely 100% agree with Madam Brunch. For me, it became less Star Trek and more Picard when he got chastised and talked down to by the current head of Starfleet. At that point, that dressing down was horrible.
Yeah.
And to me, it felt like Starfleet is turning its back on someone that should be beloved and respected. And to me, that was the closing of it. When Jean-Luc's character was treated that way, and we see Picard walking out with his head down, this was no longer a Star Trek show that you and I and everybody else have come to understand. It may be Star Trek related, but it's damn sure not Starfleet, because Starfleet just shut the door on Jean-Luc Picard. How dare you do that?
Exactly.
But it's titled Picard.
Right.
And that is that closing that door is what opened up the new door for the episodes that we got. So to me, once that happened, it was no longer Starfleet. It had anything really to do much to do with Starfleet.
I agree. I mean, even in the title, Star Trek is in small print, while Picard is in the large print, and that's when it really, like I said, for me, episode 3, like I said, at the end, that's when it really stopped being Star Trek and it just became Picard.
That Star Trek is like a Jackie Gleason kick in the butt, okay, of a little hoodlum on the side of the road, okay. I know we're going off base here, but because I have inspiration to my left side here, that was an attention getter. That's what the Star Trek in front of Picard was an attention getter.
Very eloquently put, sir. Now, I do want to ask my two, before I move on to the Wonder Midget, I want to ask my two ex-military people here. Bluesman, you're former Navy. IT Geek, former Air Force. So when I saw that dressing down, I thought there is no way that the head of Starfleet, an admiral, would speak that way to him. There's just no, I'm talking about the F-bombs, and I'm like, there's just no way. I mean, I thought this is completely unprofessional. Okay, you two, with your perspective, would that not be, did that jerk you out of the moment? You go, no, that's about right.
IT Geek, go ahead.
So to me, that didn't jerk me out of the moment. That really is more kind of a commander style. I've had some commanders in my time that wouldn't have been anything shocking to see or hear.
Okay.
You figure someone at that level, Picard and that officer would have had a little bit more cordialism to each other, but not knowing what that relationship has developed over the years, I had to kind of give it some leeway, because I mean, if they
he just given that interview too that she was not very happy with.
Yeah,
too.
so to me, I mean, you and I have been friends for 30 years. And if you had came on and talked in the sense of, again, for the Fanboys 918 of any sort, that I thought, man, you were totally off base. Would you be like, hey, John, I really don't think that was a good idea? Or be like, what in the F is in your head that I need to stomp out to get you back in line, Mr. Hines?
Wow.
What the hell are you doing?
Exactly.
So, not knowing kind of the relationship between those two officers, it's kind of hard to say how to react to that. So, I would say no. I kind of saw that as like, wow, okay, these two people are people that came up together, that they are officers that, look, you gave up your commission, I stayed in, you are now talking bad about literally my corporation. All right, I'm going to call you out. Stop being such a dickhead. So.
Oh, crap.
Over the Jays, the blue man.
Okay, hey, you know what? I agree with
you. Just ignore that Corona sneeze there by the Madam Brunch's bullets there, okay?
I'm allergic to the cigarette smoke in my building.
Yeah, don't doubt that.
Those aren't cigarettes.
I agree with IT Geek.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bluesman. Sorry.
I agree with IT Geek. The dressing down. Remember, we are a fly in the room watching the conversation, and this is between two people, two very highly decorated to that point, and very distinguished characters within Starfleet. In the story, and obviously they have a rapport. They have an understanding of each other. The fact that he went on television and said what he said about Starfleet, and then goes to Starfleet to say, hey, I need your help. I got this great idea. Yeah. I want to do this, and please help me. All I need is a ship. And what? You just belittled us on air. How dare you come in here and do this and say this? So, yeah. I
didn't think about it that way, but yeah.
I was not taken back at that, but that, to me, again, pivotal point when this story said this is all about Picard and what he does after Starfleet.
Yep. I agree.
Well, that's where I guess, being the age that he's 85, he's retired, I would think there would be a little more respect for a veteran. But there again, like you pointed out, we don't know the relationship of those two officers, how long they served together, that kind of thing. The both of you guys' points is about where it turned for me also.
Right.
But I do have to say that I have enjoyed. I was expecting and hoping for we would expand on the Star Trek universe. We already have non-Starfleet races. We have the Andorians, the Orions, Klingons, Romulans, who are not Starfleet. But then with Deep Space Nine, we got the Ferengi, the Cardassians, Bajor, and some of the Gamma Quadrant. But then with Deep Space Nine, we got to explore other aliens as well. Deep Space Nine, we found out that the rest of the universe actually uses money. Whereas, I guess they're not as evolved as we are in Starfleet.
Well, no.
So, right. So that's where I'm kind of enjoying the explanation of what's going on in the rest of the galaxy, or at least to the rest of our quadrant. Not all of our quadrant is Starfleet. So that's where I give a little bit of a pass on that, and I'm enjoying the exploration of that part of the future.
Well, and I think that's a good answer, and I tell you what, you just brought up a good point that I'm going to dive into here in a second, but I'm going to answer my own thesis that I brought up for me. For me, the moment was actually in the episode Stardust City Rag, which we've hinted around it before, where they go to Free Cloud, and I've got you've got Picard dressed up in this really stereotypical eye patch
Rios is all
Frenchman.
fly guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Rios looks like a pimp, and all these,
Something out of
Sorry,
Starsky
we don't have a picture of that, so I just threw up a cast photo. So
oh, that's
sorry
okay.
about that.
That's all right. But
Just get a picture of Sugar Bear from Starsky and Hutch.
well, and I want to kind of, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I thought of was Sugar Bear, or was it Huggy Bear? Sugar, anyway, whatever his name was. Anyway,
it's Huggy Bear. Huggy Bear.
Pimp of the year. Pimp of the year. I gotta put Pimp of the year. Well, so anyway, when they went to, one of the things that I thought was really interesting looking at the interwebs was people were really upset, or a lot of people were, not everybody, were upset about the planet of Free Cloud, this sort of Blade Runner, Coruscant looking place. And to me, that didn't really bother me. I mean, I always assumed, because of characters like Cyrano Jones and Harry Mudd, and that there were, I just always assumed there were planets like that in the Star Trek universe. I mean, we didn't ever see them. I've used them as a game master before, so I can't really criticize that. But as I'm watching these characters, who, by the way, at this point we don't really know that very well, parade around in costumes in this sort of outrageous environment, it just, at one point, it just kind of, I'm like, what kind of Star Trek is this? And it clicked. It's not Star Trek. It's just Picard. Yeah. So I kind of like the Wonder Midget. Is I'm enjoying a lot of the ideas they're throwing out about expanding the Star Trek universe. I think some work better than others, but again, to me, I think part of the problem with that episode, which by the way was my least favorite episode of the season, was Stardust City Rag, and just because we'll chime in on this here in a minute, but I didn't think they utilized that environment to its fullest. I thought they held back, as a matter of fact. But speaking of the new characters,
I mean, I'm sorry. Before you go there,
go ahead.
Because I got a point too.
I think we all have some points before you go on the.
No, absolutely, go ahead.
And stuff. So, when you speak about this planet, Wonder Midget, are you okay if I go first, or do you want to go first?
I'm just waiting to hear, because I have a feeling you may touch on something that I'm going to say, and I'll just agree with you.
Okay, so, well, the thing I have the most problem with Free Cloud is the fact that you don't get any type of glimpse into Star Trek. And this is, again, another sense when this is Picard. I mean, you go to Free Cloud, I'm expecting to see Orion slave girls, Ferengi, maybe some Cardassians, some Bajorans. I mean, if you have an opportunity here to really kind of explore what the galaxy's done, and you go to Free Cloud and this is all we got, I'm just thinking, man, the writers were just really not picking up the ball and running with it here. I mean, they literally dropped it, fumbled it, kicked it over to the other team. They picked it up, ran it 10 yards, dropped it down. They picked it back up. I mean, there were so many missed opportunities with this whole episode. to really kind of bring you back into the Star Trek fold. And
Okay,
so
that
again-
is not where I was thinking at
okay.
all. But I have to say, that is so very spot on. The resounding absence of Star Trek canon aliens, and especially with the Orion Syndicate and all of that
Yes.
stuff. I mean, why and the Ferengi and the trade, and why did we see none of that? Okay, so I have to really agree with you on that. That was a point I didn't think about, but I'm sorry that we missed that. Now, on the other hand, the B movie queen and me, I was kind of hoping there'd be like a karaoke bar and maybe Jean-Luc would get up and sing a couple of cowboy tunes. But instead, they dress him up with an eye patch and give him some kind of a French accent. So,
Which,
but I was hoping.
I hate to interrupt you here, but if you go on to Google, YouTube's, I think there are some videos where Patrick Stewart is singing.
He
some
has an
classic country
entire
songs.
album. He put out a whole
Exactly.
album.
So if
Yeah.
I had known that you were going there, I think I would have loaded one of those scenes up. But I apologize that we
His
are missing
version-
this
I'm sorry.
this huge opportunity here. So
Yeah, so his version of Rawhide is only second
Oh,
to
yeah.
Lauren Green's version of Bonanza. If you didn't know, there was words to that song too. So I think they,
Oh my
as far
God,
as
there
the,
should be.
Yeah,
so as
there
far
is.
as the comedy
Well,
goes,
it's like-
I think they could
You
have.
guys don't even know there. Some people don't even realize there's actually words to the theme song for MASH.
Oh,
Yes, there are.
there's a reason for that. It's because it's
They're so
freaking
dark.
depressing.
Yeah, it is damn dark.
Suicide is fatal.
See,
Now-
when
That's
Buddy
like
was
the
talking
opening lines.
about
I'm like, wow, okay.
See, now, when
Squirrel.
when IT
Yeah.
Geek was talking about missed opportunity on that planet, which I completely agree. That was huge missed opportunity. They could have done so much with that. But when you were sitting there describing that with the fumble and the running and the drop and the fumble, I thought you were trying to describe a scene or one of the plays from the OU LSU game we just watched. And I'm like, that sounds so familiar.
It's equivalent.
Man, fandom has gone off the rails tonight. folks.
And that's my team. That's my team.
I know
OU.
that's your team, bro. I know that's your team, bro.
I know, I get it.
So no, I mean, I enjoyed that scene. I enjoyed Free Cloud. I think if I had realized that those other aliens weren't there, I just kind of assumed and was really concentrating on the characters because
Yeah.
Santiago, playing Rios, and the fact that his ship, to kind of go down a road, has the replicas, all the
Different personalities.
different
Yeah,
personalities,
the medical or not emergency.
Yeah, the medical
holograms.
hologram, and then there's
Yeah,
the
engineering
concierge hologram.
Yeah.
And the fact that the one that's a pilot, man, he's just this dirty, ratty guy, but then the concierge guy is just, what can I help? And you get to see the range that this actor has. So that's where a lot of those little pieces of comedy I appreciate. And then him playing off of Patrick Stewart, they were kind of cute. So in a way, it's annoying, but the B movie queen and me did enjoy that little bit of fun. At Free
Rios
Cloud.
was actually
Good
one of
point.
my favorite characters of this series. I mean, I enjoyed all the throwbacks to Next Generation, but out of the entire cast that we got introduced to this season, I mean, I enjoyed the Soji and Dodge character and stuff, but all in all, I really loved the story of Rios and where he came from and where he wound up.
Okay, well, before we go much further on that, I want to let Bullets talk about Free Cloud because I know she's been waiting to say something. So.
Oh, yeah, Free Cloud.
So is anybody else surprised when Diana Troy was not Diana Troy on Free Cloud?
The actress that looked like her.
She looked almost identical. She looked more like Diana Troy than Troy looked like herself. But, neither here nor
Wow.
but I don't know. I just felt like I agree with Buddy. There's a lot of missed opportunity. There weren't as many aliens as there should have been, I feel like. Just because that's what they do. Especially, there should have been more Ferengi. Otherwise, Deep Space Nine was a waste of time with all the Ferengi storylines. But, because they would thrive in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was wasted. But also, you have this, and there's a big spoiler there, so I don't really want to say it.
I
But
think we warned everyone this was going to be
This is a spoiler, yeah.
Say it, say it.
Just say it.
And then you get 7 of 9 just popping in and just kills everybody in cold blood. And then she's like, I'm out. I'm gone. See you later.
Well, it would not be
I'm
an
fine with
episode.
that. 7 to 9 is just pure hot. She can kill anyone she wants.
And I do love how they've brought Annika in. I mean, she is the lone gun out in the wild frontier, keeping peace, doling out justice as needed. And when they killed Icheb, Mama Bear just went freak out.
Oh, don't. Okay, we're getting ahead.
Kicking ass and taking names because there's no one else out there to do it, and she stepped up to the plate.
That's
Hats
her.
off to the woman.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood, was not there.
Yep.
True that. Well, I think anyone else have anything else they want to add on either Free Cloud or that episode? Because I think everybody pretty much agrees there was a missed opportunity. I mean,
there was. I enjoyed it, I think, more than the rest of you guys did. But yeah, I do feel they missed an opportunity to incorporate some of the canon aliens.
Yeah, because I mean, just think how cool it would have been. And I'm just spitballing here, like the IT geek and like everybody's kind of said. Okay, so when the purpose for going there, of course, is to find Maddox, which is only partially successful. But they get there and they're going to use 7 of 9 as bait to try to sell her to her former lover or whatever it was. Well, how neat would it have been had in the middle of that transaction, a Ferengi walks in and tries to outbid them? Now you've got, oh crap, this was not part of the plan. Now what are we going to do? And then you've got the Orion Syndicate wanting to get in on the action. I mean, to me, there was just so many things they could have done. I mean, and I guess another disappointment that I had on the show is there were times when it's like, why are you limiting yourself to these 45, 50-minute episodes? We're behind a paywall here, folks. You can go an hour and 10. You can go an hour and 20 if you want to. So, but anyway,
that's a good point.
That was my thoughts. So, and again, so since you've talked about 7 of 9, or excuse me, Wonder Midget, since Wonder Midget's talked about 7 of 9, and since the IT Geek brought up Rios, I think this is a good opportunity to get into the character section. We had, so essentially, aside from a few cameos here and there, we had almost completely all new characters. So, IT Geek, I know you said Rios was one of your favorites. Who else was one of your favorites?
Oh, wow. So, hang on just a second here. It was some of my favorites. So, it's kind of hard because I guess if I had to think of all the characters who are on this ship, Rios being my favorite and kind of knowing where we go down. I mean, we're going to leave Picard alone because he's just a huge fan favorite.
Right. Oh, no, I'm talking about new characters only.
Right, so new characters only. I guess if you think of the order, I would have to go to Rafi. But the problem with Rafi is that I really would have enjoyed this if Rafi was Worf. I think Worf could have filled this role way better as a character, as someone that's kind of followed Picard throughout his career. And even some of the comic books we've heard that Worf actually took over the captain's chair of the Enterprise at some point.
Always going into literature.
Yeah.
So going to the literature and everything.
Yep.
So I guess with the Rafi character, that would have been probably my second favorite. And all right, well, I guess really, I mean, if we're going to do that, then actually I'd have to go Rios, then Soji and Dash, and then maybe Rafi, just because it was kind of an interesting story about them being synths, but I never saw the reason why they had to go out into the world or to the galaxy and leave their synthetic planet and everything. So there was a couple of elements there that the story idea I thought was kind of just shaky. But so yeah, Rios was my favorite. Soji Dash maybe a second, and then going into Rafi, and then I guess if you're gonna go from there, I guess our left was this Jurati, and then man, I hate to even say that name because I know that spurs a certain little level of anger.
We're talking about favorite characters, right? You know that, right?
Yes. So that's why I'm saying Mr. Geek Boy there probably would not agree with me that Girardi would be a fan favorite.
Actually, if we're going to rake Scott Pilgrim's drummer over the coals, I'm going to let the Madam Brunch and Bullets do it.
Well, it's not her fault. It's her fault. But okay,
We love to hate her.
What I liked about Rafi, I agree with you, buddy. What I liked about Rafi is Rafi actually had a lot of character growth. You know, she started in as an addict, who went on Free Cloud, went to find her child.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, you know, if y'all notice that vaping is apparently a gateway drug, so
Yeah, I saw.
Well, she's only vaping the drug, not cocaine.
I know it was just more of a joke.
I know.
In that, and she knew that she did that. So I give Rafi props for that, because she becomes very needed there at the end in the last few episodes. Because she brings Rios back from his depression and his fear, honestly, if you will. But Girardi is not my favorite. She's very weak-minded and very weak-willed.
And weak-stomached.
Oh, I beat you to it, John.
Why is there so much vomit coming out of this thick's mouth?
That's why she's so thin.
So much.
You didn't think, believe me, it was gone in the future, but there you go. It's in there.
Oh, man.
So much vomit. Like, anytime somebody like tries to mind melt with her, like, just step back. She's gonna spray you with a fire hose of vomit.
Total puke-a-rama.
That's what it looks like.
The Exorcist.
It's gross. I can't do it with her. And then she cries a lot, but it's not like a real cry. It's just, I'm gonna make my chin like quiver a little bit. And then,
but she's a great double agent now, by the way.
Not really.
Yeah.
She's really not a great double agent.
Damn, man! I didn't realize this is a hate on Girardi episode.
Wow.
She's not my favorite. I feel like there could have been more. Like there was no repercussion for what she did to Maddox, and she claimed she loved Maddox, and then she just gets to be free.
Basically, she gets to be with Rios at the end. Basically,
Yeah.
It's like, okay, yeah, I killed my former lover. Hey, Rios.
Hey, man, have you looked at the makeup? Have you looked at the makeup of that ship? Rios' odds are pretty good, man.
Well, I mean, with as many as holograms going to run, I mean, Girardi should be well serviced for a while.
I would say so.
Oh my goodness, we're going PG-13 here.
Okay.
We're almost 9 o'clock. You know, children, just be aware. And by
That's
the way,
right.
I do annotate this as a non-kid friendly
Yeah.
episodes. By the way,
Yes, yes. So, Madam, besides Rafi, who else was your favorite character? Or was that it?
I liked Rios. He was great. And then, of course, I like Dodge and Soji. I think the Romulans, they had a good arc that I was intrigued every time. I was like, what the hell are you people talking about? Every time they were on the screen, like I was
You
intrigued.
talking about the emo Romulans, or are you talking about Picard's Romulans?
I'm talking about the
Brother and sister?
the brother and sister love Romulans that you can't really tell what's happening there. Because it took me
This is Romulan's Game of Thrones right here. They're the Lannisters, by the way, in case you didn't pick up on that.
Yeah.
4 episodes to realize they were truly siblings. So I liked their storyline, and then their aunt got brought in, but she has no purpose, so they just kind of like let her die.
Well, that's something that I was kind of curious about. I mean, they were so eager to eject all these Borg into space, but wouldn't that mean one of their aunt would be one of those people they eject?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, man.
Like, they'd be like, "Oh, I love you, Auntie. You know, you should join us in the fight," and eject.
So their
I'm sorry,
storyline, I think they will have a bigger part in season 2. At least I'm hoping, because, and like like Geek Boy and I kind of talked about a little bit earlier, is that what was the point of the Borg cube other than a way to bring in Soji? There wasn't really one. Also, they asked Soji if she finished her mission. What was her mission? Because I don't know. Because she answered yes, and as of like 10 minutes before they arrived at the planet, she didn't even know who she was. So how did she finish her mission without that knowledge. So, but
Why are you asking legitimate
I like
questions?
watching it.
Just enjoy. You're not supposed to ask questions about the show. You're just supposed to enjoy it. That you didn't get that message.
I so wish so bad that the critical drinker was here, because his response is to be, so what about this now? Fucking, it'll be fine. You know, it just goes on down the road. So, Bluesman and Wonder Midget, the new characters, which were your favorites? I believe you guys have already talked a little bit about Rafi. Is that correct?
Well, I think I enjoyed Rafi a little more than everybody else did. I agree with IT Geek. You know, Worf might have been able to fill that, but I understand why she's broken and where she's at, and that's where she's like the anti-hero. So we got to see a little piece of what she and Jean-Luc went through back in the day after the whole thing on Mars and that kind of thing. So, and she had everything that Picard seemed to always want, like Brunch and Bullets brought up. The fact that when anytime he dreamed or whatever, he was back on the vineyard, he had a family. When he was in the Nexus, that was like the one thing he sort of craved. Whereas she had that, and as her son so eloquently put it, she chose her career over her family. At least from his point of view, that's what happened. From our point of view and Rafi's point of view, she kind of helped save the universe with Jean-Luc. There was a lot of things that, you know, injustices that were going on. So in a way, she's one of those anti-heroes. So I've enjoyed this character so much. And I mean, Michelle Hurd, I've really enjoyed the actress, and she was back on Law and Order back in the early 90s.
That's right. I couldn't remember where I'd seen her before. Thank you.
So when I saw her doing this, I was just like, this is a wonderful, you know, part for her. And the woman hasn't aged, neither has, you know, Annika.
Yeah.
But one of my other favorite new characters is Alton. And, you know, it turns out, just like Daj and Soji and Sutra are triplets, turns out Data was sort of a triplet. He had a human brother. I do enjoy how Brent Spiner has played this character. You know, episode 9 and 10, there was a lot of intrigue in there. And I will have to say, episode 9, there's a little lazy Star Trek that I found that I just couldn't sit on the couch for. But we'll bring that up later.
Oh boy!
So, but as far as characters, I love Rafi, and Alton was quite a nice surprise.
Everybody you didn't like?
Elnor is really kind of an interesting character.
I liked Elnor.
Talk about Space Legolas.
Stop calling him that. It's not who he is.
Space Legolas. But he's a Romulan nun.
A male nun at that.
Seriously. He's the Kwisatz Haderach.
I'm thinking he needs to put some input on.
I think you're correct.
Huh?
Well, you know, they just need to get him a little bit of spice and get him on some dune planet, and he could be the Kwisatz Haderach.
Bluesman, what's your thought there? I mean, you seem to be just shaking your head a little bit, but I think you got some other comments.
Okay, so Michelle as Rafi, okay, you know, is okay, not a favorite.
We all have our demons, and that's the thing. We get to see everybody's demons, so I can't discount her for, you know, vaping and drinking.
Okay, yeah, she's not one of my favorites. Who is Santiago? Okay, so Rios, with the multi-personalities that he's playing on his ship, I think hands down he should get an award for just playing seven different characters in one TV show.
Oh, that needs to be our third category for the Fanboys Awards.
My favorite number one character on Star Trek Picard is the character of Rios Santiago. I do not want to mess up his last name. Cabrera.
Cabrera.
Whatever. Anyway,
Santiago. I'm just gonna call him Rios because I would hammer the crap out of that.
Yeah,
but
I try. I can't do it. Anyway, that's my number one pick. For now, there's a lot of the other actors and actresses that do a really good job. Mm-hmm. I do like Evan's performance as
as Elnor was pretty good. I appreciated the role. But I gotta say, man, I got a dark side to me too, you know, and the dark side, I embrace the dark side because, like Luke Skywalker said, you got to embrace the light with the dark. My second favorite character is Harry Treadaway, and as Narek, as that brother.
Oh my gosh,
about.
Really?
The emo.
I like him because he's playing a very dark, different type.
And you see him conflicted.
And he is. And so the passion that he is embracing and then just the intelligence from the race, and it's like all the contradictions and being belittled. And in his own words, he's saying that I'm the black sheep of our family. You know, and here it is me that is saving, and it is me that found this person, this planet. I did this, the black sheep. And it's just that passion just fueled me to just, I really like that character. I don't want to. He's a bad guy.
We love to hate him.
Absolutely. But he's come around the end. So, hey, you know, is he really that bad? He did some bad shit.
He did.
So I don't know if you guys realize, if anyone's seen the Pennywise series, or not Pennywise, the Penny Dreadful series that was out for a while.
Yes.
He actually played the Dr. Frankenstein character, character on this show.
Okay.
So he was, I really enjoyed him in that episode, and but with the character he was playing here, it wasn't a far stretch from the same type of character he played on that show for me. So maybe seeing him already kind of play that character in Penny Dreadful, I wasn't as enamored by him. But no, I see what you're saying there in the sense that with his portrayal of a Romulan that was kind of the outcast, the one that no one would believe that he would be able to be the one that finds everything. That was, I agree with you. It was pretty powerful.
It really was. And then, of course, when we get into the season finale, he's actually able to interact with known enemies for a common goal and for the common good to save humanity. And humanity at that point is not Romulan. It's not Federation. It's the human type of species that's non-synthetic. And to me, he drove that, and I really dug it.
I do have to say one more thing about Rios, though. I do like how they played him. He's kind of that space scoundrel with a heart kind of guy, or a heart of gold. And, you know, he's a real Boy Scout. So when they lost power after the orchids came and drained their power, you know, what does he do? He pulls out.
Did you just hear the sentence you just said? Did you just hear the sentence? When they lost power, when the orchids drained their ship.
Yeah, I know, right? We're talking Star Trek. Okay, so the Zion in the atmosphere interacts with the mucous membrane, causing the power drain. And what's he doing? Was it a Bic or a Zippo? Either way, we know in the future you got Bics and Zippos. But also the fact that, you know, he's got to be a Boy Scout at heart because just his actions that we've seen in the episodes. But he has stuff like old school med kit.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's what a Boy Scout would have.
I mean, but he's a lone pilot in his own ship with multiple personality holograms that pop up to do all the different functions of a ship. I mean, he's been roughing it on his own for a while. He just happens to know Raffi and was the unlucky person that she called and said, "Hey, I got a friend you might need help."
Yeah, true that.
Well, I have to join in here. In fact, that's another thing that I really enjoyed about the Rios character is the fact that, man, if I was in the future and I had my own ship and literally my own holographic crew, I mean, you couldn't get any much better than that. I
know, right?
The fact that you get to just fly around the space and do whatever you want, and you've got the crew that you could enable, disable as at your whim. So, I mean, other than some personal interaction stuff, this was kind of almost like, man, this is what I would like to be in the future. Own my own ship and fly around the galaxy.
Answer to no one.
Thing.
But he's been working his way. IT Geek's been working his way towards Daffy Duck's home of the future for quite a while. But I think he forgot, you know, what happened in the Asheville cartoons when the House tried to kill him. But, you know, so we got to be real careful with technology.
Yeah. Well, you know, something that a lot of people that I've heard more than once come up here is hey, Worf would have been good in this role, or so and so. So I want to posit something before I give my favorite and least favorite characters. I think the whole show would have worked better had that crew been made up of retired ex-Enterprise D crew members. Instead of Rios, you got Riker. Instead of Rafi, who's got this really bad past relationship with Picard, you've got Beverly, okay, who because of everything that happened with the Romulan thing, that broke their relationship apart, okay. You've got Worf on there, you doing the intelligence functions, and you've got, or he could take the place of he could do Rafi's intelligence stuff, plus he could do Space Legolas's fighting, okay. And then you've got just
then you've got Soji, who's basically Data.
Yeah, well, Soji, Soji's the key to the whole thing. So I mean, they would all rally around, Soji because of their connection to Data. But that's a different debate for maybe a different podcast. But my favorite characters, and if people want to respond to that, that's fine. But my favorite characters, honestly, were Rios, and I'm not going to go into him because everybody's pretty much touched on why he is everybody's favorite character. I think he is probably the front runner for everybody's favorite character. I'm not going to rehash everything. But I loved the 2 Romulan housekeepers that he had that were obviously ex-Tal Shiar and obviously had not forgotten their skills from the Tal Shiar. I mean, they had weapons hidden all over the house. I mean, they had all kinds of stuff.
I mean, this was like almost John Wick style.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, you're intruding our home? Okay, we got guns on the table.
Yeah.
We got up the fireplace. I can still kick your butt and kill you with the butcher knife.
Exactly. I mean, and so my question is, why didn't you hire some old Tellarite to watch your winery and take these people with you? Why do you got to go pick up Space Legolas? I mean, it didn't make any sense.
Because they don't take Bitcoin. They take gold pressed platinum.
Well, and the fact that they didn't want him to leave. Like, they truly cared about him.
That's true.
Agreed.
I think they knew of his illness. And they knew that he was chasing something to feel more powerful because of the illness.
And that is 4 characters. That's 4 characters we have not seen before that he has this close personal relationship on the same level that he has with Riker and Deanna. And we get to see them. And I do love to see them in their new place. But,
oh my gosh.
But that's where those expats, I can't wait for season 2 to see where we might find out more about those relationships.
Yeah, I just thought that.
Hey, before we get too much further, let's welcome Vicky Lynn Burke into the chat and everything. So
hey, Vicky.
And Chrissy.
Anyone else is Chrissy? Okay, yeah. Make sure we comment on the people that come in because not everybody can see everybody. So.
Well, my tricorder died, so I'm out.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I got one of those older tricorders. It's like that. Med kit that Girardi found on Rios's ship.
Gotcha. Yep.
Only so much battery life.
I was looking to see if I had a replacement for you back here on the shelf, but I don't see it.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. I think you might have one back there.
I might. All right, God dang it, I might. Blues Man,
we just need Jordy LaForge and we can rig it up and go Mr. T.
I'll pity the fool that don't have a recurrent tricorder.
That's right.
Yeah.
Ooh, there's Geek Boy's butt. I see.
Yep. Nice picture of Geek Boy's butt.
Hang on now.
Hey.
Here we go. Oh.
There it is.
He's been working on that with some squats.
He actually had that. That's cool.
Look at that headset. He looks like he's part of the board, especially with that shaved head.
So can we talk about some of the old characters that we brought back that are wonderful?
Oh my! Actually, yeah. Because I think pretty much everybody's talked about my least favorite characters already. So except for, well, I can't hate Space Legolas because I didn't really get to know him that well.
I like that he's so naive and honest. The fact that somehow they have brought into the Star Trek, brought into Picard, the fact that you've got, emo Romulan who his whole life is nothing but lies and lies and lies. And then the opposite end of the spectrum is a young man who doesn't know what lying is. He knows it exists, but he doesn't know how to do it because he's never lived his life that way. And so that's kind of a nice contrast.
And Bullets, I'm sorry, I keep calling him Space Legolas. What would you prefer I call him?
Oops.
His name is Elnor.
Elnor.
Well, okay, and so here's the thing about Elnor and why I like him, and while my significant other really likes him, that is probably his favorite character.
Really? Okay.
And I
Please.
think it's the childlike innocence that he has. I think he really thought that at one point Picard was going to take him with him. He
I
thought
agree.
that as a child, they were like, especially when the nuns were like, we can't keep him here. He can't stay here. This isn't sustainable for him. And then they told Picard that, and the little boy, as a little boy, Elnor overheard it. And so then Picard had to leave immediately. Like there was no like time to say goodbye, nothing. He had to go. And so,
And the fact that he never came back after.
right, and then he never came back. And I think that a lot of his child like innocence comes from that. Of yes, I've grown and I've learned how to, wield this powerful weapon, but he's still holding out that Picard would come back for him because that's what he believed would happen.
He's got that whole little Orphan Annie thing going on, and he really plays it well.
The scene after they find that the artifact has crash landed, and they're having conversation about whether someone can survive, and that foreboding, it leading up to the scene where they walk into the artifact, and then you see the scene where Elnor sees Picard and he runs to him and embraces him. That drives home exactly your point.
And that's what he always wanted. That was the kind of thing he always dreamed of, is he wanted that kind of a relationship.
Yep. Right. That was a really good scene too.
Yeah.
Well, and bringing that up, you also got to think that also kind of proves the point that, when you go into Picard's vault and he still has the Picard's Day banter from all the kids and
the
stuff.
banner, I
think that kind of is a huge relevant fact that Picard knew that there was a part of him that wanted a child or some type of relationship of someone that would carry on for him, and you hearing Madam kind of bring that up, it kind of clicks it all together. Is that Picard, when we saw him in Next Generation, was never a kids captain, but in his retirement and towards the end of his career, we see him. He's like kind of taking that into consideration. Is that I need to leave on a legacy, and Elnor was that legacy.
I agree.
Yeah, good point.
And I like how they brought up the other legacies too, like, Riker and Deanna's daughter, and that they had another child at one point. Ray and I just about fell out of our chair when we saw the fact that they had a pizza garden and a grill and all that. That's like us if we were in space.
Yeah, on a different planet.
And then the darn kid looked like Cassie. And acting like her.
Oh yeah,
that was freaky.
Well, and okay, so you hinted at this a few minutes ago, and it's funny that you use the word legacy, because to me that's one of the things about the show. When the show really worked is when it leaned into its own legacy. To me,
I agree.
To me that was whether we got seeing Riker and Troy again, whether it was seeing the little snippets of Data. Or even Hugh and some of these other legacy characters, that whenever the show leaned into its own history, I thought it worked tremendously well. I mean, like I said,
even when it was the good happy parts and the parts that tore at our hearts.
Well, some of them. But I mean, like for example, I said before, the opening shot of the Enterprise D coming in there, and just wow, and then. Like IT Geek said, when Picard went to his mini storage and saw that, and we all, I mean, honestly, I like I said, I feel kind of hypocritical not being able to give the show a great favorable review, because at least 50% of the episodes I really dug. I mean, first 4 episodes were great, with little issues here and there, and I love the Riker and Troy episode very much. I thought it came kind of during the wrong point in the season, but that's another topic. So yeah, and any time the show even I get it. I've read some really shitty stuff, pardon my French, around the internet about people giving the de-aging of Data. You know, they're bagging on like, look, guys, it's a TV budget. You know, this is not Marvel that can spend $10 million on a scene to make Michael Douglas look like he did 20 years ago. I thought for a TV budget, for what they had to work with, they did as probably they could have done. So yeah, I mean,
the de-aging of Data, I thought still looked great.
Yeah,
I didn't think there was any problems with that.
I didn't either.
agree.
So,
Well, and then in the last episode when Data asked for them to turn him off, because he's still, I guess his consciousness is still alive and still going.
I don't know.
Wibbly wobbly time.
Yeah, I think so.
Things.
Timey wimey wibbly wobbly things, yeah.
So he's still going, but he's like, please turn me off, because he made a sacrifice for Picard, and that's how he made it equivalent for him to be human. That was his great sacrifice, that he saw himself as human. So, but I thought that the scene where Picard is sitting with him when he's being turned off and he's, wasting away in a general sense of like his consciousness, but it's the Picard of probably season 2 or 3 of Next Gen, because he had hair. Like, I don't know if you guys paid that much attention to it.
Yeah, he had his old uniform on. Yeah,
he had his uniform on. He was what Data remembered him as being, young and commanding, and that's what Data saw him as. I don't think Data actually saw him age. I think Data saw him just as he was.
I've got to piggyback on that a little bit by the fact that it's a great point, but the thing that I thought kind of devalued that scene is that the sheer friendship level that Data had with Geordi, and he was not present at all, I thought kind of took that down a level.
Yes.
I mean, that was brothers. I mean, that would be like seeing my death scene and not seeing John or Jay or Bruce or some other people in that scene. It'd be like, wait a minute, that's not right. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's just so many things wrong with the scene by the fact that the only person there is Jean-Luc when Data even not even having Tasha there. I mean, the fact that we remember the Next Generation episodes where he still hangs on to, or Generations movie, he still has the hologram from Tasha. And Spot's not spotted, and maybe in a background just kind of sitting on a windowsill and everything, or on the back of the couch. There's so many small things they could have added.
I think it surrounded him with the cast of that.
Yes.
I think it could have been, and you can't tell me they don't know about the show. They all still hang out together. They were out like 2 weeks ago.
Well,
now here did a global hangout with Marina Sirtis for her birthday or something.
Well, now, did you guys see the episode of The Ready Room where Spiner talks about when Patrick took him out to dinner to tell him about the show? Yeah, he's like, it is called Picard, and none of you will be in it. Yeah.
So I want to hit back on a point that IT Geek talked about just a few minutes ago. So in that scene that you guys are, and also Madam Brunch, in that scene of Data fading.
Yeah.
Okay, to me, they made it abundantly clear that his consciousness was locked into this hard drive, if you will, and only his consciousness was locked into it. So he is in this room that is not there. He knows it's just his consciousness. He knows it's not a living thing. It's just
a simulation. Yes,
he understands that, but he's trapped there alone to spend out all of eternity in that hard drive, and therefore that's why you do not see all the other people that are in his life, which led to me the great understanding of
why he wanted to die.
They put Picard in there in this transference. And during that transference, I love the scene between the two of them. I thought that was very genuine. Again, I agree. I thought that they made, with the makeup, Brent Spiner looked great. I love your catch, Madam Brunch, on Picard. Looking back,
I agree with you 100%. They did do that. That was fantastic. I do love the fact that they put him in the uniform. But that is the reason why that was his only out. But it was his last chance to obtain true humanity. And I agree with the writing in that. But to me, that scene made perfect sense because all those things that made him who he was in service to Starfleet were absent. That's what drove him to want this ending because he didn't have anything else. Me, it worked.
May I
join him that a little bit? Sorry, but Jay, you bring up a good point. The fact that he even stipulated the fact that transference to B4 was not entirety because it couldn't handle all the capacity. So it kind of makes sense the fact that the only thing that would be relevant in his forefront memory would be Picard because he was sacrificing himself to save Picard. Yeah. So, that's a great point that I hadn't thought of. And so bringing that Picard as the only person there could actually really explain that. So that's a great valid point.
Actually, and Picard's consciousness was there, and that's why Data could see him.
Yeah.
And only him.
Right. It was put in
I would like to comment on this if I may. So
we're going to open up a can of worms.
Well, actually,
that's a jar
something I've been thinking about, but
that's a jar of shine, by the way.
I see that. So I want to bounce something off everyone and see what their thoughts on this is, especially given what the comments have been made between the IT Geek and the Bluesman. I'm really interested to see what you think about this. I have two different things. First of all, that scene between Picard and Data, both of them, when Picard realizes that he has died, and then the following one where Data passes, they're played spectacularly. I mean, is there any doubt you're going to put Brent Spiner and Patrick Stewart in the same room and not get something good out of them? Absolutely not. But something that's always bothered me about that scene is, okay, where are we at this point in the story? We are on Synthville, right? Mm-hmm. We're on a planet that's building Soong-type androids that apparently are superior to Data. Why are you leaving Data in the Cuisinart? Why don't you build him a body and put his consciousness in there? I mean,
amen.
And I get it from a production standpoint. Brent Spiner is not getting any younger. I understand all that. But if you would have recast the part of like, hey, we built a new body, we're going to put Data's consciousness in it, and had you recast it with someone like Jim Parsons, oh my God, Sheldon Cooper now is playing Data, the fans would have lost their freaking mind, But
oh my gosh,
so
they need to throw thousands of dollars at you.
They need to just throw me $1,000. I'll take $1,000. I'll throw out ideas for them for $1,000 pop. But why wouldn't you not do that? Or and I'll let you guys. I want to get your comments on both of these. So if you're not going to put Data in a new body, okay. And if you've got his consciousness already in this Cuisinart, all right, what about instead of destroying it, and I get it, Data, you've come as far as you can go, you're trapped in here. How about instead we upload you into the computer core of every single Starfleet vessel, and now when you say computer, you hear Data's voice, because we know that the computers on the starships were semi-AI, and now Data has been given an existence he couldn't even begin to imagine. He's everywhere. He can go everywhere on any Starfleet ship, anywhere. That's an existence he never would have thought of, and he can be everywhere. And now you've got that. And it fulfills Bruce Maddox's dream of putting a Data on every ship, and it sidesteps the issue of having a slave race. To me, that would have been a great ending. But apparently they did something else. And again, not that the scenes weren't effective, but I'm like, you're on the synth planet. Make him a new body. Okay, so that's my thoughts. Bluesman, and then IT Geek, and then Brunch. But whoever wants to chime in on that, let me know what you think.
Well, here, let me chime in first on that. Okay. So I agree with you on that. I didn't even think about that. But first of all, that would make sense. And that's all I can say.
Enough said.
Okay, so for the record, I actually saw the writing on the wall with Picard going into the body thing.
Oh yeah.
So I wasn't really a fan of that happening, but I get why, because they want a second season. All right,
Yeah.
so that being
Well, if I
said,
remember correctly, Patrick Stewart's actually signed on for 3 seasons of this, so we knew he wasn't going anywhere.
exactly, like I said, that being said, we saw the writing on the wall. We knew it was going to happen. That's the reason why. But that's just the only golem that they created? I agree with Geek Boy. That probably should have been at least entertained, because that would have been way cool. You know what? We have data. Let's put data into a new, improved body that can
Yes.
feel, that can understand, that can love and feel passion and cry and oh my God, I didn't even think about, to the point that you talked about putting them on the ships. But is that something that he really may have wanted? That could have been a decision that he could have made.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they
Adam, you
could
wanna go next?
2 words.
I don't
Lazy
agree
Trek.
with that. I think I'm the only one that doesn't agree with that.
Okay.
Because, like I said earlier, Data had lived his whole existence aboard the Enterprise and with Picard and with Geordi and everything, trying to learn how to become human, how to have an emotion that he wasn't programmed to have.
Data 2.0.
And he
Put him in
tried,
another body.
and so then in the end, what he did was sacrifice himself for Picard. He sacrificed who he was for Picard to live. And then the way that his mind would have worked, he could have seen that that was the ultimate experience of being a human, was to sacrifice his life for another or for the greater good. And
yeah, I think it was eloquent.
really supposed to be in the next gen, was to take the place of the Vulcan, who is more logical and more scientific. That's what his character was meant to do. So when you take him and you put him onto the starships, that cheapened in Data's eyes of his experience of being human. It took away his view of what he worked for to learn to do. He wasn't programmed to sacrifice himself for another person. He did it because he knew that Jean-Luc was his friend.
I agree with your comment.
So I don't think putting him in a new body or putting him in the starships would have been what Data truly wanted. I think it was truly what we would have wanted. And as humans, we want that. We want that friend or that parent or whoever they are to stay with us forever. And just like what they did with Picard, they weren't ready to lose him, therefore they put him into the golem. But Data didn't see it that way. He saw it as, I did this sacrifice. This was my human moment. Please don't cheapen it.
No. Okay. That's a good point.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah.
I don't entirely agree, but it is a very good point, very valid. Because they did exactly the same thing with Picard. Picard put everything on the line to save this entire planet of sense.
And Data at one point as well.
Okay, exactly. And he knew full well and good he was going to die, and he did.
But I do agree with you, bunch of bullets on your point.
And he did. But
And he did.
He woke up in a new, brand new body that didn't have this whole thing in his head that is going to make him die anyway.
But what if Jean-Luc did it because he was dying anyway? Data wasn't dying anyway. It was a sacrifice. Jean-Luc was going to die no matter what.
Yeah.
He had already started to go downhill.
Right.
So
true.
Okay.
So I'm going to kind of join in my little my 2 cents into that. And so I agree with you, Brunch, that the fact that when this question was posed to me, it's like there is no way Data would ever want to be a consciousness on every starship everywhere. And we agree in the fact that Data's ultimate goal was to be human. And in order to be human doesn't mean you exist everywhere at a single moment. So that would have cheapened Data's lifelong goal to be a AI on every starship within the Federation or beyond. Secondly, I agree with the fact that, with Data's decision to make a sacrifice to save Jean-Luc, he understood that he was sacrificing his existence and further development, and even sacrificing his end goal of trying to achieve to be human. And so with his sacrifice of himself, he literally achieved a human level that most humans don't even get an opportunity to express. So to me, his death scene there was more prevalent because the longer he lived in this simulation was more of just a devalue of what he wanted to be, what he had done for Jean-Luc, and what he wanted his entire existence. And so to see him die that way with Jean-Luc's help and see him kind of de-age like that, I thought it was a very moving and touching scene that kind of allowed Data to have that dignity that he deserved from what he tried to achieve throughout his entire life.
And the dignity that we all want in the end.
Okay.
I agree.
All right. So I was going to start on from here asking everybody's favorite moments, because obviously but actually before we go any further, I want to illustrate just how far superior this show is to Discovery, because we are having legitimate, reasoned conversations on differences of opinion that basically every view could be well reasoned. Whereas Discovery is like, why the fuck they do that? What I mean?
Exactly. What the hell are they thinking?
Yeah. So, and even though I said ultimately that a lot of the things that I didn't care for began to pile up, it wasn't like, because I remember the watch party over at my house. It's like by the first commercial break on Discovery, I'm like, something ain't right here, and took Picard. So I do want to let's talk about some things that didn't work, or maybe people found kind of off-putting a little bit.
Can I go first on that one?
Sure, absolutely. Please go ahead.
Okay, as Bluesman pours me another drink into my little Star Trek cup here.
Okay.
The reason why this lost a star for me, why it only gets 4, is the darn imagination tool. I'm sorry, when they put that out at episode 9, I fell off the couch. I left the room. Thank you, honey. Because Jay knew I was losing my mind. That is the laziest Star Trek I've ever heard of.
Would
you take this Android tool and decide to just think of whatever you want and it'll happen. Space magic.
Yes. Did you know that if you clapped, it made it work even better, right?
Did you have to wear the red slippers and click the heels together to get the turbo on it?
Okay, I hated that.
That was
I assume everyone's referring to the Green Lantern, Sonic Screwdriver, Harry Potter wand, magic bullshit machine. Is that what we're talking about?
Purple brass knuckle looking thing. It was like purple day glow, brass knuckles.
Well,
and so I loved everything about the show except that.
Why didn't we use the magic bullshit machine to heal Picard's brain and put Data in the golem? See, there you go, Wonder Midget.
Exactly. The magic bullshit machine. That's what we're going to call it now.
Trademark, patent pending.
Well, maybe we should call it brass knuckles. I don't know. The bullcrap knuckles.
Anything else that did not work for you?
Well, I not that it didn't necessarily work for me. I like that they kind of explained a little bit about the transwarp conduit. They went 25 light years in 15 minutes. So at first I was like, what? Because we were just having tea and taking our time before. But then when they jumped out and Annika explained later that she opened a second transwarp conduit. And really, I realize we don't really like some of the things, but I thought it was very cool how she went all rocket when she locked into the cube and her spine lit up and all of that. It was like real Guardians of the Galaxy raccoon moment.
That was cool as shit.
That was really cool.
Watching her become the new Borg queen, that was one of my highlights.
Temporarily, and this is where, like we were talking about Raffi, and she drinks. Annika, we're drinking whiskey in her honor in our Star Trek glasses. But we all, in a way, that was a very brave thing, because she knew that there was a chance she could get addicted again, meaning she could fall prey to that, calmness or whatever it was of being in the collective. But she was still herself enough to let go, and she seemed to be pretty happy-go-lucky once she disconnected. So I was real proud of her for that. But that's because she's got grit.
Okay. Well, I agree.
True that.
I gotta jump in a little bit on that one, in the sense that that is probably one of the coolest scenes out of the whole season, is to see her become the new Borg queen. The only thing that catches me on the flip side is the fact that I see them totally dropping the ball, that they don't do anything extraordinary with it. She becomes the Borg queen. She's ready to march her forces. And then she ejects. Then they eject all the Borg out into space.
Well, that's
Not
more
that
of
it's
her
a big
children.
deal.
I mean, that's her family.
No,
She's
I get
going to
that.
go mama bear even more.
No, I get that. But as we saw in First Contact, that wasn't a big deal. The Borg were walking on the outside of the Enterprise, trying to assemble this transmitter. So seeing
that was a fully
Borg,
those were fully functioning drones, and
Correct.
these were not.
These were expats.
These were ex disconnected that did not hear communication. They did not hear the voices, and they were also damaged.
And they didn't have all the stuff that would suspend them in space.
No, they would have had to, because she wouldn't have known. If they were disjoined, she wouldn't have known if they were ejected.
Well, what he means
So
is
are...
The ship was disconnected. The ship was powered down.
No. What Buddy's talking about is all those on the cube were activated. What Jay's talking about is they weren't connected to the main Borg collective. They were only connected to Annika, and that's where But she is still she's 7 and 9 when she's connected, and she's Annika, and she's already lost Icheb, and all of these Borg have been unassimilated, so they would not be able to survive. So that's where the fact that she yelled, and you could hear that echo through the universe about, when they ejected all the expats. Right. So, but yeah, in the real Borg, they wouldn't have cared. We'll just make more drones. We'll just assimilate more.
No, I'm sorry. So I've got to debate in the sense that she knows when they're ejected, because these are still drones that have not been decommed. They're basically
we assume that
their power. Well, yeah, we have to assume that, in the sense that when they're ejected, she senses that they're being ripped from their coves. If you are one of these ones, these ex-Borgs or whatever, these are ones that all the Borg technology has been removed, which would included the emo Romulans, ant.
But as we see, not everything was removed from their body.
Correct. Well, no, I think there was, because we've seen them in their holding patterns where there's very little, if none, of the Borg technology left over.
Well, 7 has hers.
Well, she wasn't ever part of the project. She was part of Voyager when she was separated from the collective.
Right.
And she never actually went through the process to have them all removed.
She did.
She did, but she could not.
They could not remove all of them because they were so deeply implanted.
Yeah, because she was
so young. Funny about all this.
So young.
I see what you're saying, though, and I agree with your point. I think there's a little assumption on that, but no, from your point, I agree. From that view, yeah. If we're assuming that all the technology was removed completely from all of their bodies, then I can see what you're talking. That the ones that were ejected were the ones that had not been repatriated, and that's what your point is that.
Right. There was just too many that were ejected that I thought that would have been too detrimental. But
you know what you guys are doing right now? You're taking a complex case study that's a valid one, and you're illustrating probably my biggest issue. Well, maybe not my big, but one of the biggest issues with this show. And Discovery does it worse, like way worse, because like I say, I'm not hate watching Picard, okay, but like the problem is with the exception of Brunch, everyone here has or me, for example, I've been watching Star Trek for 43 of the 49 years I've been alive. Okay. And as a result, I am immersed in its canon, in its technology, in how, how things. So like what both of you are saying is I'm watching this show and they'll do something and I'll go, well, now wait a minute. If this is true, then how come this and this and this isn't true? Or if this and this and this is true, then why are we doing this? Like some smaller examples of this is like the transporter. Okay. We have the transporter. Transporter works. We all know how that. Everyone who watches Star Trek knows how the transporter works. Okay. So instead of maybe beaming down lame ass strike team after strike team after strike team trying to arrest Dodge and Soji as she kicks your ass every time, why don't you just lock onto her and beam her up and hold her into stasis? I mean,
it works.
I think that's an easy one to explain. The fact that when she's activated, literally as a synth, she can scramble her pattern in the sense that basically they can't lock on to her.
Okay.
And once she's activated, that's
okay. Is that how you took that?
There's a lot of assuming in the sense of this series that
yes.
Like, okay, well, I'm now trying to explain it away.
Yeah.
And someone that's not as familiar with Star Trek be like, what the fuck's going on here?
What the hell y'all talking about?
But to someone who's not a huge Star Trek, canonista like me, they're just like, oh, this is a cool action scene, and I get it, but again, okay, to do the other thing, and I'm not, okay, Madam Brunch, I'm not bagging on Elnor. I had to think what his real name was for a second. But when Elnor is winning the Romulan Hunger Games on the Borg cube, okay, did it ever occur to these Romulans that, hey man, we got directed energy weapons here that have a stun setting. We don't have to like charge at this guy, I mean, he's sitting there fighting these guys for like 3 days. He can't even go to the bathroom while he's winning the Romulan Hunger Games, and none of them think to like shoot him with an energy weapon from like all the way down the hall where his sword can't get to them. And it's just like, why are we doing it's just things like that I'm like, why? So that those are the
embarrassed.
Yes, it's like, okay, and that's just but again, you guys are talking about, and when I'm listening to this conversation about the Borg drones, whether they were, it's like it's a big case study of this same thing, which is like,
it is.
Okay, so the other thing, and this goes right along with Wonder Midget's timey-wimey brass knuckle magic bullshit machine thing, is what? Pardon my French, folks, but we're almost at 10 o'clock. What the fuck is Romulan molecular forensics? It's like a time travel device. It's like I'm going to wave this.
Time out. That came from one of your two favorite characters. It did, but I'm like, how does this work? I'm like, you're waving this sonic screwdriver, at this couch, and you're magically conjuring up a convert, not only the scene, huh? Do what? A theoretical past.
Yeah, a theoretical past that you can also. Oh, hold on, Brunch has her hand up. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brunch. I'm sorry.
I have a question.
Okay.
Here's my question. If we had this magical timey-wimey device, why could we not make more orchids?
That's probably how they
did. What they used to make them.
That's probably what they used.
It just takes time.
No, because she said
imagination.
If it took time, then they wouldn't have been able to have those ships. They couldn't have came.
Oh yeah, you're right. I hear yes.
Hardy was the one that was like, we could do this, and her face pops up like 100 times, and you're like, oh my god, put your face away. Nobody likes it.
Oh my gosh, you're so smart. Yes.
So, but why did they not think to do that? Then they could have had, instead of just one ship, they could have had all of these space orchids in space.
Well, I can tell you why they didn't.
Because
because it's not in the script, and 2 because then Riker couldn't be the universal constant and ride in saving the day.
Well, and
Which,
also
by the way-
they also did say that the ships that show up aren't actually real; they are mirrors. They
Right.
are a projection.
Yes.
But
Well,
they
no
did have
wonder they
wolf
all look
signatures,
alike.
though.
But they had,
Well, yeah, but I mean,
but at the same time, they distracted. So having all of those orchids there to distract the big one and the few other ones they had could have done more. And then this brings me to another point. So General O just can go about her life.
oh yeah. So don't even get me started on this because this one pissed me off more than anything. The fact that
Go.
you have a Romulan spy
Go.
in charge of your security,
Yes.
security
You have your
fleet,
code.
Starfleet, and the next thing you know, hey, I'm taking some time off so I can go lead my freaking Romulan Empire battle fleet to demolish the synth planet. And then, Captain Riker, you show up. Yes, I am Commander O of your security, and it's
Not
I'm
anymore,
standing
you're
on the
not.
Romulan bridge. I'm like, what the hell is going on here, Star Trek?
Yeah.
So she's like half Romulan, half Vulcan.
No, I don't even think she's that.
I think
And
she's
all
Vulcan.
bullshit.
They make
It's
mention
all
that she's
Romulan.
half Romulan.
Yeah.
At one point, they do make mention that she's half Romulan.
Okay, so you know what I thought? Remember the scene where she takes the Romulan monks, the monk ladies, and they grab the glowing chair rail or the handrail, and they start beating their head because we can't have an episode of modern Star Trek without copious bloodshed and murder, right? So they grab the magic chair rail or handrail, and they start screaming and blowing their brains out. You know what my first thought was? Holy shit! That's a magic Star Trek Discovery uploader. It uploaded both seasons of Discovery into their brain at the same time, and they can't take it. Holy shit! Somebody destroy this planet.
Definitely get to the 10 o'clock hour, children. If you're paying attention,
Oh my
this
God.
is the after dark hours.
Mm-hmm.
The curse words are flowing.
That's right.
Frequently.
That's right.
Mazeppa Papa Zoidy. This is where we're at. So, but no, and it's like it took all this time, and finally they have chair rail. They have rail technology.
Well, don't grab it though, or it'll fry your brain.
But honestly,
Exactly. That's why they don't have handrail
Bitch
technology.
like that one who just stands there.
well, I couldn't think of a better race for that to happen to, honestly, because no one likes them. Just just grab on this ring, we'll fry your brain, we'll call it good.
So that was really kind of, I
And
guess,
they're like the baddest of the baddest. I mean,
Yeah.
they're the Tal Shiar.
they're Tal Shiar. Fry your brains. We don't want any more, y'all.
They're like the ninjas of the Tal Shiar, the female
You got
ninjas.
10 of them grabbing the ring. One of them survives. Woohoo!
Well, and, okay,
Progress.
so
He was like, there
But
was.
they
I
take
did
the
not
spice.
see- Here's my thing. I also didn't see the full reason of why you needed to take a rock and bash your own face in.
Because it drove her insane.
Yeah, insanity.
that's what I want to do when I watch Star Trek Discovery.
John,
Ouch.
you need to grab a hold
Ouch.
of this.
There.
You
That's
need
twice.
to grab a hold of this as a moderator and get us back on track.
Okay,
Yeah,
all
get us
right.
back
So
on track.
We're almost
Speaking
2
of
hours
that,
into this bad boy.
I know. So
Okay, so I do have
and
to
I
say
guess
one thing that I really didn't care for. The dark part, I know we've asked for grit, and I think we got it, but I think there's a little bit too much mind rape on Picard. And other than that, that's the other reason it lost a star. So,
Oh wow, mind rape. I like that. I like. That
well,
kind
yeah,
of-
mind rape and just the graphic violence and you know and I guess this I'm getting into my nitpick area, but like the language, okay,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and I'm not even talking about the cursing, which but like the language of Star Trek has always been somewhat elevated or somewhat not quite Shakespearean, but it's slightly more formal than what we use.
it's above
And any-
sentence enhancers.
And anytime you see people interacting on this show, they're talking like 21st century hipsters, okay? And they're hanging out and doing what 21st century hipsters do. You know, we've got Dodge and her obviously multiracial boyfriend having some wine, and he's very effeminate and he criticizes her. It's like I thought we didn't talk like this anymore, you know. But to get to more of a point, the profanity. As I said, I've been watching Star Trek since I was 6. Had Star Trek talk like this when I was 6, I never would have got to watch it again until I was 21. My parents would say,
Okay, so-
turn that off. You're not going to watch it anymore.
Exactly. That's a really good point. And we've done enough cons, conventions,
to where the audience that participates in the panels that we put on have talked about this.
Yeah.
And this subject has come up a lot, especially when Discovery dropped the F-bomb for the first time on a Star Trek show. Okay, and that was really a big deal.
It was.
It was a huge talking point.
We went from an F-bomb being dropped twice in the same scene to what we have now. Right. But it's not Star Trek, but it is.
Well, I think they delivered it a little bit, they just kind of slipped it in because it'd be like in general conversation. But again, I don't think it's necessary in Star Trek.
No.
It's not that we don't have cuss words in the future, but the thing is it really necessary? There are those times, but the delivery and scripting needs to be proper.
Well, on that, I want to piggyback. I got to say this. I want to piggyback on what John said, and this is true. That's a very, very good point, John. So it felt less like the 24th century that we're watching, okay, and more like the 21st and a half century, right? So we have all this technology, but we're back in the 21st century.
And we're so evolved that we don't even need money, but yet we're still cussing.
Yes. What the hell?
Yeah. No, exactly.
So when
I had a problem with that.
Never mind.
Go ahead.
I've got to throw anything here. So, just kind of trying to play devil's advocate here in the sense that...
Not that I don't like a salty word now and then.
Right. But one of the cool things that we've enjoyed about the Orville, until they go in totally different direction here, is that feels like more what our society would be like in that time frame. And
that's a good point.
What I'm seeing, and kind of what I'm feeling with Star Trek Discovery and Picard, is that I don't. That's one thing I've always felt with Star Trek is that I don't think that would ever be something that would ever fall out of our language. I mean, we still got the hills, the dams, and everything. Mm-hmm. And though we've never heard the F-bomb, I just don't think it will ever go away. I mean, it just, to me, it was like, again, I even said this at a convention, when they dropped the F-bomb in Star Trek Discovery, I felt it took Star Trek to a more grown-up level. And to me, though, a lot of people felt like, well, this isn't something I can watch with my kids anymore because of that language. And I get that. But to me, it brings a sense of realism to Star Trek for me.
And I do agree with you on that, buddy. I think they delivered it much better in Picard than they did in Discovery.
So I remember a panel that we did. We were discussing a potential new possible Star Trek movie coming out, or maybe a series, and maybe a movie being produced by someone that is known to produce very strong grit. And I made the comment, are we ready for a rated R Star Trek?
I don't know. That Tarantino-ish trailer was really good.
There was a lady there with her child. And I made that comment, and she was very adamant towards me about that. I thought, you know what? Maybe we are. She's like, nope, God, no, we can't. And you know what? In her defense, I get her standpoint.
I get it too.
Yeah, and I appreciate that standpoint. And it wasn't me saying this. I was just proposing the idea that maybe we are. She was directing her comment directly at me because I made that statement. And I appreciate that. But this is our first taste of a potential rated R type of conflict in space that's attached with Star Trek that could be rated R because of graphic violence, because of the language, and because of the sexual content that could be construed.
Well, space is dangerous. It's not all the apple dumpling gang. So at some point, we got to expect that.
But again, back to what IT Geek. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay.
I was going to say, to me, I mean, we've always been kind of be on the cusp of a rated R. I mean, if you think of some of the battle, the damages, the damage upon one another, it's just basically based on census of what they were allowed. I mean, could you imagine what the Gorn battle between he and Kirk, had there not been a census in place of when he was shot with the the cannon?
yeah.
I mean, we would have seen an arm almost probably blown off, hanging by the tendons, some bones breaking through the skin. I mean, this is. The shows were always dictated by what the census was allowing to be shown.
Mm-hmm.
And as we progress as a culture, I feel we are more acceptable to more gruesome. I mean, think of what we've seen in Supernatural, what we've seen in The Grudge, what we've seen in...
yeah, but those shows aren't Star Trek, though.
Good point.
But what's to say they are or are not Star Trek just because the census has not allowed them to do that?
Right. We still haven't seen anybody go to the bathroom in space.
No.
Exactly. I mean, I don't tell me we ain't doing.
I've seen the ship plans. I know there's bathrooms on there.
Yes, sir.
Designed the
You
toilet.
telling me Picard don't take a dump?
That's right.
He
Captain's
does, but
log.
it's very dignified.
Well, that's okay. He's wiping with like a cashmere toilet paper or something. I don't know. But
Well, all
go
that
make it
wine,
so.
I'm sure he's pretty regular. So
Want to go. Number one, make it poo.
Exactly.
Bullets,
So-
did you have something? I'm sorry. I think Bullets had something.
About. Oh, I was just saying. Sorry, my dogs got restless.
Oh, it's all right.
We missed our.
So to get us kind of
the
back on
grandchildren are out
track.
of control, John.
I know. Well, we have been on for quite a while, but and I guess the one of the last things I want to talk about as far as things that I thought were troubling was this whole. I don't feel like they really defined what the synths were, or better yet, the synth band. The definition of synthetic life. I mean, the show makes this big deal about the synth band, but yet we still have holograms that are very AI. We've got the index at the library that's obviously got some artificial intelligence in it. We've got the holograms on the La Serena that are very AI. A hologram falls asleep from boredom aboard the La Serena when they're in the chateau. So so they have some kind of a touch of AI. We've had that in Starfleet computers since TOS, but yet they know. So is a synth? Is it supposed to be an AI that's made in the form of a person? Is that what they've banned, or I mean, I guess would Data have been
This
banned?
is where Star Trek has that gray area of contemporary social commentary, and that's exactly.
I know what they were
question.
trying to say. I know what they were trying to say, but
Well,
Right, but that's the question that they want the fans to answer themselves. At what point are you real? And that's where it's a matter of they've got these varying levels. You've got the synthetics, you've got the AI. At what point are you a person, for lack of a better term?
right. No, I see that, but my thing is, what is the ban about? I'm sorry, Jay, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I just want to kind of comment on your statement. The big difference is you turn the emitter off, that person goes away.
True. Yes.
Okay, so now let's go all the way back to DS9, where I'm going to draw a blank because I just pulled this. It's like pull a rabbit out of the hat. But the character that ran the casino type of Vic's place. Okay, thank you very much. I love you. So Vic was very much a real character in that series for the time that he did, not a real person. A very much an AI because he was allowed to just keep on going and develop over all that span. But again, you turn that emitter off, that person, that character fades away. The Synths have that intelligence, and they are still there. They are full. Now we've seen with the new breeds that they have created are very lifelike, and they still bleed, and they still do all these things, normal functions, and that's a defining line. I mean, you have created the ultra synthetic life form that could and will surpass humanity.
I think the real fear, though,
Because
is
they're reproducing themselves.
The real fear, though, I think, is the fact that it could be programmed for good or nefarious reasons. And I think that's where the ban came from, was at what point are they developing, more to the nefarious side other than the side where data tend to skew, which was towards the benefit of humanity or the betterment of humanity.
I disagree.
And so that's where it's real scary, and that's where the gray area is.
The head of Starfleet was O.
No,
At the time, the head of Starfleet
Security.
was
She was head
O.
of security, not
security.
Starfleet security was O. She was trying to push for this. She was implementing, perfectly placed to implement that type of radical change, and was a part of a team that made that happen. That entire breakdown that caused that entire deal. Okay,
And they hinted to the espionage of the whole Mars thing being just her production.
right.
Oh yeah,
They
there's
really
no doubt
hinted
that
it.
she made that. I mean, she engineered that whole thing, and
Yeah.
I don't think there's any. I would have actually waited till after the Armada evacuated my people, and then I would have done it. But maybe having blow up Utopia Planitia when there's actual military ships there, not civilian refugee ships. But
Well, that's where
I digress.
she really wanted to drive it home.
You got to drive it home, John.
I guess.
I've got to throw one thing out in the fact that the difference between a synth and an AI is the fact that we even saw it on with Rios, is that he was able to go in and actually delete data, delete personalities, delete memories from those AIs that
Right.
basically he interfaced with.
That's
A
right.
synth, when Measure of a Man, basically Data, and with Jean-Luc Picard's help, basically won his freedom.
Right.
And in Soch and Dodge, they're I'm getting them mixed up now. I think it was Soch was the second twin. Right?
Correct,
Or was
yes.
that Dodge?
No, Soji.
Soch actually, he's like, she had a great scene in the sense that she's telling Picard's like, you chose. I mean, whether or not we could be free, whether we could have rights and everything like that. You had, and I kind of throw that back to Measure of Man. It's like, it was up to Starfleet whether or not Data was truly sentient and can do what he wanted to.
That's
It
the
was
question.
never his choice. It was always whether or not Starfleet would allow him to do so. And so with the AIs, they still don't have the freedom to be the AI they want to be, while the synths were being developed to kind of follow in the footsteps of Data until the incident when we found out they actually were being programmed more like an AI than actually the synth like Data. And
Right.
so I think that's where the whole ban kind of took into place, in the fact that there didn't seem to be a distinguishable separation any further.
Well, the separation is you have artificial intelligence, and that differentiates between sentient being. And Data was a sentient being. He was fully
Right.
aware of everything.
And autonomous.
Where artificial
Before
intelligence.
wasn't.
No.
Although, was Vic sentient to a degree, and that's kind of, where the gray area is, but he was not an autonomous
Correct.
sentient. Yeah,
He couldn't exist outside of Emitterville.
right.
But
So-
the Doctor on Voyager could eventually.
Exactly. And
Oh,
that's where the
emitter.
whole social
Yeah.
commentary of the gray area comes in.
Right.
Who is really sentient, who's only 3/4 sentient.
But he could only do that with the little self emitter that kept on
Right.
projecting.
That he got from the future.
Yes, he did.
Mm-hmm.
So
Plot
it's like,
device.
okay, so yeah. But anyway, yeah. I mean, again, it was one of those elements of Picard that they like, oh, don't watch that episode. Don't forget about that. We don't want you to remember that. And so John and I were talking about this the other day, and this kind of harkens back. It's like, we're feeding you Star Trek Picard. We're not giving you episodes that you need to think about and consider and take into past episodes for relevance. You take the spoonful of Star Trek Picard and you just enjoy it. And maybe, John, maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't, but that was a few times in the series or the season that I'm like, man, no, I'm not eating your bowl of Star Trek Picard
Right.
just because you don't want to explain what's happened in the past to make it all relevant.
Right. And I guess part of it is too. I mean, there were some times where something would happen in an episode. I'm like, what? And then an episode or two later, they would at least have a line of dialogue that would address it. I mean, whether I agreed with how they addressed it, it's like, okay, at least you recognize the need to address it, you know. But there were other things like, you know, I thought this show was full of really cool concepts, you know, like the 8-star star system and Seven becoming a Borg queen and all this, that, and the other thing. But there were just a lot of things that I felt were really sort of underdeveloped. And I blame, and we've got to wrap this up because we've been on for almost 2 hours. But I blame all this on all of you, on you guys, because I was your GM for so many years. I've got to think about this thing like a GM, and I can't just sit there and not think, okay, well, what if they ask me about this? What if they ask me about this? I better have an answer for them. So, yeah, so see, it's nice of me to be able to push my lack of enjoyment off on other people.
Well, that's great. You know what? The writing of Star Trek, John. So the writing of Star Trek has always been flawed. Even
It
back
has.
in the 60s,
Yeah.
okay, they've had stuff that they've written and then kind of forgot, and then we did that. Let's go back and let's make this and do this, and then we can cover this by doing this.
Yeah.
You know what? And it has plagued Star Trek all the way through every decade when they do something and they recreate or redo a new show or whatever. There's
Right.
always
It happens. Yeah.
it always happens with this franchise, no matter what. And they make the very best of it, and they try to make do with what they have and what they have created, and then destroyed, and then try to recreate again. But for the most part, I think what they have attempted to recreate after a very personal opinion of Discovery kind of disastrous. I'm scared to watch season 3. Not sure what we're going to get after being let down at the ending of the last two seasons that we got of Discovery. This to me has set a very good pace for something that could be very enjoyable for the vast majority. Those that do not want to have their kids watch this because of content or whatever, I totally understand, because those families are out there. But this sets the pace for some really cool, semi-edgy, kind of gritty type of Star Trek that we have yet to see before. That's not Starfleet. And honestly, I'm intrigued. I'm going to sign in and I'm going to watch it. I've really enjoyed what I've seen so far.
Well, that's great. That's awesome.
And really, there's one constant in the whole universe, which is Frakes. And, you know, the episodes of Discovery that I really enjoyed were directed by Frakes. And the fact that he's had his hand in this cookie jar, you know, I liked his episodes of Discovery. I really liked the episodes of Orville that Frakes had his hand in. And I loved all the episodes of Leverage that Frakes directed and was a part of. So the fact that he was going to be involved in Picard I knew that our Star Trek would be taken care of. We might have some questions, but heck, that's what we love to do, is to debate the canon. And well, now, wait a minute, does this make sense? And then we figure it out ourselves. The main reason why we debate all of this is so that we can later use it in game.
Yeah.
And
one of the many reasons, yes.
That's right. And so we already know that, you know, the Geek Boys, you know, fan cave is bugged, and there's been a few of their ideas that they've
Allegedly bugged.
Allegedly. I know.
Allegedly.
I'm sorry. There's like games we played 6 years ago that they're producing now. But I do appreciate that Jonathan Frakes has come back in, how they've revisited those characters. It is a little bit of pandering, but I'm okay with a little pandering. It's Star Trek.
Absolutely.
You know, just don't destroy it. And I think they've done a really good job. I will give it 4 stars.
Okay.
But really,
Madam
at the
Brunch.
very end, when Frakes showed up, and I got to tell you, those blue eyes and that, you know, great steel stare that he has, and he shows up with all those ships. It's like, you know, there are constants in the universe. They are Jonathan Frakes and Will Riker. You can always count on Will Riker.
Madam Brunch and Bullets, your closing thoughts on Picard.
I'm excited to see what they do in season 2, and see what they bring in and how they explain plot holes that they didn't really finish in season 1. It was for sure a 3.5, 4-star show, much better than Discovery for sure. And in that sense, I think Discovery is just misplaced in the timeline, but if it was in a different spot, it would be a better show, but it's not, so we're stuck with where it's at. But I think Picard's it's decent. It's not Star Trek Picard. It's just Picard now. So just see where it goes.
Okay. IT Geek, your closing thoughts on Picard.
So I'm going to echo what Brunch has just said there. So I am eager for season 2 and 3, just because it is Picard. But as we saw at the ending episode, it looks like more like his new crew is part of the Ranger outfit that 7 and 9 was part of. You saw them in their gear with the emblem. I think they'll become kind of this rogue outfit that maybe Starfleet will use for some some covert missions, and they are to be used for areas that Starfleet can't be present, but with Jean-Luc's presence, that there's still kind of that respect that he does have a Starfleet, je ne sais quoi, if you will, if for Jean-Luc Picard there. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be great, and I'm enjoying it more than I am to Star Trek Discovery. But I also think that's also a little bit just because this is all kind of a flashback,
nostalgic
homage to the Next Generation, which was my Star Trek. The original series was my older brother's. Next Generation came out in my time frame, so that and so this is just kind of like the old series, the original series for me.
Yeah, I do. I have to admit, as much as I hate to admit it, the member berries and the nostalgia did really get me in a lot of places. I mean, when not a scene that we've talked about. Well, we talked around it, but when Riker shows up at the end and he's sitting in that captain's chair and just and he's
Riker scene right there,
and he's staring down her at that screen. By the way, just to show you that they were listening to the fans. In the original, and I don't know if it was shot this way and they went back and reshot it, but plans were up to the last minute to have the blonde-haired admiral that told him to go screw off in the first episode.
Shelby?
Huh?
Oh, you're talking about for season for Picard.
Not Shelby, but
right.
Kristen. Well, I don't know what her last name was, but the admiral that basically told him to go pound sand. She was going to be the one to show up with the fleet. And and I think they decided, like, no, I think the fans would really like, and they got that right. So, it's I guess one of the things it does have in common with Discovery is I see it does have a lot of potential. I think they found that potential a lot more than Discovery has. So ultimately, like I say, I'm going to give it 2.5, 3 stars, just because of the nostalgia and the fact that I felt, unlike Discovery, I felt like this show's heart was in the right place, even though it didn't always arrive there. So with that having been said, we are way long, but I don't think we've gone this long since.
We did have about a 20-minute delay due to some technical difficulties. So.
We haven't gone this long since Prince.
That's what I was going to say. The Prince talks about the longest we've done this for. So anyway, IT Geek, why don't you take us out?
Again, this has been our review of Star Trek Picard. We've had Geek Boy. Say hello. Say goodnight, Geek Boy.
Good night, Geek Boy.
So we've had Jay the Blues Man and the Wonder Midget. Say goodnight, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Hey, good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
And of course, we've had Madam Brunch and Bullets with us tonight, so we want to say goodnight to her as well. So good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
And again, I'm the IT Geek. Thank you guys for joining in, and we appreciate you tuning in, and we hope to see you here next week. So, good night, everybody.
Bye.